So our next speaker, I'll use a different voice. Our next speaker this evening is Mary Beth Abrams. Hey, here I am. I'm very bad at funny stuff. But I am also very, very excited to be here right now. This is like I hope this is a highlight for you guys every year, because it's definitely a highlight for me. The Hall of Fame is like, woo! Who loves the Hall of Fame? All right, so a little bit of information about the Hall of Fame for those of you who are here for the first time. The NAVS Hall of Fame began 34 years ago when the North American Vegetarian Society honored Freya and Jay Dinshaw of the American Vegan Society for introducing veganism to the United States. They were pioneers, as I mentioned before, and perhaps all the progress that we see today was actually seated in their work. Since that time, NAVS has inducted someone new into the Hall of Fame every year. And people sometimes ask us, what are the guidelines on how we select the Hall of Fame candidates? So I'm going to give you the main criteria, or at least what we've had since 2012. Candidates must be full or nearly full-time activists for veganism in general, or specifically in the fields of health or animal rights or environmental protection. They must have done outstanding work to advance veganism. Their work must have affected a large number of people, and they must have national or international recognition. I think it's very safe to say that you're going to be blown away by the level of accomplishment of this year's winner. But before we get to that, let's run through the names of all of the members of the Hall of Fame, starting with Jay and Freya Dinshaw. Vegan homestead, that's fine to clap if you want. Vegan homesteaders Helen Scott Nearing. Dr. Michael Clapper. George Eisman. Paul Obis, the founder of Vegetarian Times and Gandhi. And Alex Hershaft, founder of the Farm Animal Reform Movement. Muriel Gold, one of the early NAVS board members, and Patricia Lambert, another early NAVS board member, and Howard Lyman, perhaps one of the greatest vegan activists of all time, and Charles Stoller and Deborah Wasserman, founders of the Vegetarian Resource Group, now called the Vegan Resource Group, Brian and Sharon Graff, founders and directors of this conference, Richard Schwartz, founder of the Jewish Vegetarians of North America, and Dr. T. Colin Campbell, and Brenda Davis, and vegan cookbook pioneer Joe Stepanek, who remembers vegan vittles, not even remembers vegan vittles, but still uses it today. Joe Connolly and Colleen Holland, the founders of Veg News. Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn, and Dr. Neil Barnard, and Jenny Stein and James Levesque, founders of Tribe of Heart. Ray Sikora, co-founder of Plant-Based Daily. We miss you, Ray. Come back next year. John Pierre, who possibly is in the house. John, are you here? I know he had a client this evening, and John Pierre is always available for his clients, so that might be why he isn't here if he's not in the room. Dr. Hans Deal. Chef Miyoko Schinner and Chef Mark Reinfeld, our Summerfest chef. Chef AJ, Dr. Michael Greger, and last year's inductee, Dr. Kim Williams. Now, this is Auntie Mame from the 1958 movie Mame, and she's not this year's winner. But she is the childhood role model of this year's winner. And so I'm going to tell you about this character, Auntie Mame. She could be described as a fashionable free thinker with a heart of gold living in New York City. Don't say anything if you've already figured it out, but that's a clue. And here's another clue. Words are her greatest tool, both written and spoken. And a few words that define her are compassion and care for non-human animals, for the earth, for each other, and for ourselves. For more than 50 years, she has been a powerful, consistent, articulate advocate for veganism, animal rights, and ahimsa. It is time to announce the 2024 inductee into the NAVS Hall of Fame, Victoria Moran. All right, so Victoria is going to stay in the audience, and I'm going to give this presentation right now, and we're going to find out all about Victoria, and then she'll come up at the end, and we are actually going to start here in 1950 in Kansas City, Missouri, where she was born. Now, both of her parents worked, and since daycares didn't really exist back then, her parents hired a grandmother-type nanny called Adeline DeSoto, and I understand that you would call her Dee Dee. Victoria was baptized Roman Catholic, but Adeline introduced her to spiritual teachings from all over the world. And when Victoria was 5, Adeline mentioned the word vegetarian in one of their conversations, and Victoria felt a spark. She knew there was something in it for her, but at that young age, she just didn't quite know why. And Victoria refers to Adeline as her first guru. Victoria cared deeply for animals, so much so that when she was 13, she went vegetarian. But the only thing that she knew to eat was cottage cheese and fruit, so it only lasted for a few months, but that's a very good try at the age of 13. When she was in 10th grade, her bio class assigned an animal dissection, and she was furious. She ended up getting transferred out of the class, but not before her teacher said something very interesting to her. He said, "But you do eat animals, don't you?" To which Victoria paused and replied, "I do, but I won't always." And then he said, "You know what? I believe you." As a teenager in the 1960s, Victoria wrote for teen magazines, and she got a press pass for $1 from Teen Life magazine. It got her into a Beatles press conference when she was 14, and another one when she was 15, and then when she was 16 and about to go to her third Beatles press conference, it was canceled at the last minute. So there she was, alone in Chicago, no plans. Her dad came out and they checked into a hotel, the one that Victoria knew that the Beatles were staying in. So, as Victoria has shared many times, she and her dad went into the hotel elevator, and Victoria recognized someone in there as a Beatles roadie. I couldn't find his first name, but I guess his last name was Evans, so we'll call him Evans. So this guy, Evans, was over by the elevator buttons, and he said to Victoria, "What floor are you on?" And she said, "I'm on 11, but I'd rather go to 22. Because you see, Victoria knew that the Beatles were staying on 22. Well, Evans did not let her go up to the 22nd floor, but he did have dinner with her and her dad that night, and they all became friends. So a year later, when Victoria and her dad were in London, they met up with Evans at a club called Bag o' Nails, and Evans said to them, there's somebody that I would like you to meet. And he led them to the back of the restaurant, and there was Paul McCartney, who ordered drinks for everyone at the table, including Victoria, and she drank it. She was 17. Such an awesome story. It's my pleasure to be able to share your story, Victoria. That same year, Victoria started doing yoga. But she didn't just do yoga poses. She read several books about yogic philosophy, including Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation by Jess Stern. And with all this reading, she came to the conclusion that if you're going to be serious about yoga, you have to become vegetarian. About a year later, she moved to London to attend the Lucy Clayton School of Fashion, and she delved deeper into yoga. She stopped eating land animals, and when school ended and she went back to the US, she stopped eating fish. Also, right around this same time, she became a freelance writer for natural food stores and health magazines and vegetarian magazines. In her early 20s, Victoria got active with animal rights in Kansas City, and she was completely sold on veganism. But she wasn't really vegan, or at least not more than a few days at a time. Because you see, this entire time, Victoria was struggling with a compulsive eating disorder. And as Victoria has said in interviews, when you're on a binge, you don't read labels. And besides, vegan junk food didn't even exist back then, except for granola, which didn't really cut it. In 1970, Victoria moved to Wheaton, Illinois to live and work at the headquarters of the Theosophical Society. And she met someone there who would become a lifelong friend, Nathaniel Altman. All the meals at the Theosophical Society were vegetarian, but she and Nathaniel got involved with working to transition the meals to vegan. They even invited Jay Dinshaw, founder of the American Vegan Society, to speak there. Also during this time, Victoria helped Nathaniel write his book, Eating for Life, a book about vegetarianism. Victoria ended up developing a friendship with Jay, and she credits him for helping her through some very hard times. And when he spearheaded the World Vegetarian Congress in 1975, Victoria was there. There's the ad for the World Congress. Here she is in the Children's Center talking to kids about being kind. She was there in the Children's Center talking with the kids. And here she is as MC of the Fashion Compassion Show. Now, this World Congress evolved into what we now call the Vegan Summerfest. So this was a pretty big deal that Victoria was there 50 years ago. So way to go, Victoria. In her late 20s, Victoria attended North Central College in Naperville, Illinois, majoring in religious studies. She earned a Richter Fellowship for Foreign Study and traveled back to the UK to research and write her undergraduate thesis, which was published several years later as her first book, Compassion, the Ultimate Ethic. It was the first book on vegan philosophy in the United States to be published by a major publisher, and it was groundbreaking. And she earned a degree in comparative religions. In 1977, Victoria married Patrick Moran, and 6 years later, their daughter Adair was born. Victoria was still struggling this entire time with the compulsive eating disorder, but she wanted to raise Adair vegan, and she knew that the only way that would work is if she was vegan too, for real. So, in November of 1983, 41 years ago, Victoria became vegan, and then right afterwards, she discovered Overeaters Anonymous. Victoria says that with this 12-step program, she healed from the inside out and was finally able to overcome the binge eating disorder and be vegan. The weight fell off gently, and she arrived at a healthy body size, and she's stayed there ever since. They participated in street activism as a family until, very sadly, Patrick died. 10 years later, her book, The Love Power Diet, came out, telling the story of how she stopped compulsive eating with Overeaters Anonymous, and she wrote about the spiritual growth that resulted from the combination of the 12-step program and veganism. From there, Victoria wrote Get the Fat Out and Shelter for the Spirit, Creating a Charmed Life, Lit from Within, Fit from Within, Younger by the Day, Fat, Broken, Lonely No More, and Living a Charmed Life. She was now an internationally recognized self-help guru specializing in well-being, spirituality, and vegan living. And along the way, she married William Melton, a retired attorney who became vegan when he met Victoria and who's now an ordained interfaith minister and animal chaplain. In 2012, Main Street Vegan was published, co-authored with her daughter Adair. It's a complete guide on how to become vegan, hailed the Vegan Bible New Testament by Veg News. An interesting side note here, and some of you may have heard this story from Victoria, she always liked the title Main Street Vegan, but her publisher didn't like it. They did not want to use it. So back before the book was published, she ran into documentarian Michael Moore in New York City, and she told him about the conflict. Well, he liked the title, so much so that he reached out to her publisher and persuaded them to go with it. Victoria calls this a vegan miracle. Thank you, Michael Moore. Veg News went on to vote Main Street Vegan as one of the top 12 vegan books of 2012. Now, going back in time just a little bit, Victoria was a full-time writer, but the internet was starting to replace books, and she knew she needed a backup plan. And that's when she got the idea to create a school an academy for vegans who want to expand the effectiveness of their outreach. And I'm saying that really clearly and slowly because I'll bet there's people in this room that are vegans who want to expand the effectiveness of their outreach. This would be a school where people could be trained and certified as vegan coaches and educators, and she worked on it. So the same year that the book, Main Street Vegan, came out, Victoria launched the Main Street Vegan Academy, the first and only school that offers the credentials Certified Vegan Lifestyle Coach and Educator, or VLCE. The Academy is personalized, professional, and based on a commitment to excellence in plant-based training and education, with top vegan luminary instructors and an in-depth curriculum that covers vegan principles, communication principles, and business principles. Graduates include coaches, entrepreneurs, they work for animal rights organizations, health organizations, they're authors and podcasters, public speakers, social media influencers, and many of them use their new vegan credentials as an extension of their already established professions, such as psychologists, fitness instructors, nutritionists, yoga teachers, and healthcare providers. Past students include Kat Mendenhall of Cruelty Free Western Wear, and author and consultant J.L. Fields, and the founder of Riverdale Cheese, Diane Wentz of the Chick Vegan blog, and the founder of Bright Life Foods. Forbes wrote that the Main Street Vegan Academy inspires entrepreneurs and seeds vegan business endeavors of every sort. The curriculum is solid, the faculty top-notch, and the immersion experience and after-graduation support is incomparable. In 2015, the Good Karma Diet came out, emphasizing a high-green, high-raw, high-energy vegan lifestyle. And it explains that when we align our eating with our ethics, we eat healthier and we feel better about ourselves. And then out came the Main Street Vegan Academy Cookbook, written with graduate J.L. Fields. It's a cookbook, obviously, but it's also a complete guide on how to go vegan, including all the different aspects of veganism, including the social landscape. And now, before we get to the next thing, I have to share something with you. So in my community, or in the community where I'm from, Glastonbury, Connecticut, there's a couple of churches in our town that do this wonderful annual thing called Service for the Animals. And they pray for animals, and people talk about their animals, and some of them bring their animals to the service, and it's very beautiful, and people feel wonderful as they go in there to pray for the animals. I think it takes place on St. Francis Assisi's birthday, who was a saint that loved animals, and it's all very beautiful, except for the fact that everybody goes home and eats animals for lunch. That's the problem. That's the problem. So, have any of you out there ever felt like your religion or your spiritual group just does not reflect your compassion for animals? Has anybody ever had that experience? Okay, well, that's why Victoria and her husband, William Melton, and the Reverend Sarah Bowen founded the Compassion Consortium. This is an interfaith spiritual center for animal advocates. It's for people who desire a spiritual community based on compassion, including for animals. It fills the gap where one's own religion or spiritual group leaves a hole. And I think that we all know that that can be a pretty big hole. The Compassion Consortium offers a monthly Zoom service and events and classes and pastoral counseling and grief counseling for people who lose their animals, and even animal Reiki. Plus, they offer training, this is really interesting, they offer training in animal chaplaincy, which involves teaching people how to minister to animals and to people with companion animals, and to animal care providers, and to communities affected by wildlife conflicts. Last year, the Compassion Consortium traveled to the Parliament of the World's Religions in Chicago. And Victoria has said in interviews that the vegan presence at the conference was inspiring. She's mentioned the big, beautiful vegan meal prepared and served by the Sikh community. Well, all vegan except for the yogurt, and she says that it was absolutely magical. Victoria is a producer for the 2019 film, A Prayer for Compassion. It's a full-length documentary that inspires and encourages people who are already on a religious or spiritual path to expand their circle of compassion, to embrace all life, regardless of species, and to make choices that are in alignment with this value. And in this film, vegans from all faiths of the world talk about how the root of their faith is love, compassion, and oneness, and how living without harming others by being vegan is a grace. Miss Liberty is a film in pre-production about a fictional cow who escapes from a slaughterhouse and the human drama that ensues. It's a family film with a surprise ending, and it was conceived by Victoria's husband, William, who also wrote the original screenplay. Victoria and William are now co-writing and co-producing the film, and Jean Bauer of Farm Sanctuary is the associate producer. Miss Liberty got started with critical funding from the Taiwanese Buddhist leader, Supreme Master Ching Hai, and Veg Good Films and an anonymous investor, but fundraising continues in order to keep it all moving forward. Now, this is going to be a big deal film, people. Some of the actors who have expressed interest in being in it include an Academy Award nominee, a Golden Globe and Drama Desk Award winner, a sports legend, and a veteran of over 50 films. In other words, famous people want to be in this film, and it will be a mainstream movie, or should I say a Main Street movie, Victoria. And now we begin the wind down. Get ready for this, because the wind down is almost kind of a wind up before it winds down. So, Victoria has written for or been referred to in Vegetarian Times, Mothering Magazine, Natural Health, Yoga Journal, Woman's Day, the Oprah Magazine, Allure, Glamour, the Washington Post, the Huffington Post, and a bunch of other publications. She's got podcasts and shows, including the Main Street Vegan Podcast, Meetings with Remarkable Women, the Main Street Vegan Salon on Unchained TV, and she hosted the program Your Charmed Life on the Martha Stewart channel on Sirius Radio. She appears on other people's podcasts too, and operates the Main Street Vegan blog, and her speaking engagement calendar is packed. This is what it looks like just from this past April through next month. She's been on Good Morning America and Supreme Master Television and on Oprah twice. She's a New York Times bestselling author, a celebrity coach for the PCRM Vegan Kickstart, and she performs an autobiographical one-woman show. She received a Vegan of the Year award, and her Main Street Vegan blog has been listed among the top 100 vegan blogs. Veg News calls her one of the top 10 contemporary vegetarian authors. PETA named her the sexiest vegan woman over 50 in 2016, and she's been called the fairy godmother of the vegan movement in the USA. Her books have been praised by Ellen DeGeneres and Michael Moore and Moby and Dean Ornish and Dr. Neil Barnard and Marianne Williamson, Mariel Hemingway, and Bill Clinton. About 10 years ago, Victoria took up aerial yoga, following in her daughter's footsteps. Adair is an aerialist and a stunt performer. And then, at the age of 70, she completed a 200-hour yoga teacher training course and got certified as a Raja Yoga instructor. And she continues to write. Her book, Age Like a Yogi, comes out this winter. It will be her 14th book, and it's about the practical wisdom of yoga, the youth-preserving secrets of Ayurveda, and the life-enhancing power of nonviolence and living gently. So much of Victoria's life's work focuses on teaching others how to take the very best care of themselves, body, mind, and spirit. But she has said many times that her deepest motivation comes from compassion for animals, veganism as a moral imperative. Her activism is based on the idea that when we take the best care of ourselves, body, mind, and spirit, including having compassion for ourselves and compassion for our home, this planet, when we do all of this, we help draw those around us to us, and therefore to our veganism. It's all interconnected. When we are the light, others are drawn to us, and they want to know what we're doing. Patty Brightman was Victoria's longtime literary agent. She's retired now, but many of you might actually know Patty as having been a highly regarded literary agent in the field of veganism. Patty says that her career became what it was because of Victoria. She said that it was Victoria that helped her believe that her dream was even possible. And it was Victoria that supported her, like emotionally, and just gave her the support and the belief of what it took to actually get there. She says that because of Victoria, her career became more fulfilling than she could have ever imagined. Victoria's lifelong friend Nathaniel from the Theosophical Society says that Victoria's innate humility, kindness, loyalty, and desire to help others are hallmarks of how she lives her life every single day. He says that she exemplifies a life grounded in respect and compassion toward ourselves and to other living beings. NAVS is honored to have included Victoria in our Summerfest family since our very first conference 50 years ago, and tonight we are ecstatic to induct her into our Hall of Fame. Victoria Moran, please come on up. Victoria, on behalf of the North American Vegetarian Society, we would like to provide you with this clock, this beautiful plaque, and we appreciate you, and the world is a better place because you're in it. Oh my God, thank you. I'll leave this right here, and you can take some time to say a few words.
Okay. I'm not usually speechless. I needed a clock. Thank you. This is really something. I'm old enough to remember an old TV show called This Is Your Life, and I never thought I would ever see my life, all the best parts all played back. So thank you so much. I'm really humbled by this honor because it took me a long time to get from vegetarian to vegan, and I just think there's so many people that are more perfect, but I think sometimes we imperfect people can impact the world too. I just want to thank, first Freya and Jay, because they believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. And I would try so hard to be vegan, and I'd be vegan, a few weeks, even a few months. It's like, I'm vegan. And I would fall off the wagon. And never once did either one of these amazing people say to me, oh, for heaven's sakes, you're just never going to make this. Just stop, wasting our time. They always believed in me, and they always saw me as a vegan. And that's one thing that I try to do in activism and talking with people is everybody who's not vegan, well, they're a pregan. And if they've got almond milk in the refrigerator, good job, great, this is so wonderful, because that's what Jay and Freya did for me. They believed in me until I could believe in myself. And I also want to thank my daughter, Adair, and I'll tell you her Instagram because it's so good. It's at Adair Stunts, because she's a stunt person. I went vegan finally because I looked at this little baby in this crib and thought, she has to be vegan. I don't want to raise an animal eater, but I knew, of course, that I had to be vegan. And so, as was described with that combination of what I learned in Overeaters Anonymous to get past my eating disorder and the great tutelage for all that time from Freya and Jay and others, I'm just so grateful. So I'm grateful for this incredible honor tonight, and I'm extremely grateful for getting this message when I did. And I feel that it's given me 3 tremendous privileges. And one is good health, because for me, the weight fell off, and being pre-diabetic, I left, way back in my 20s and early 30s. And, all the diseases that my family got, I haven't gotten yet. I'll get something someday, because everybody does. But I feel really grateful for that. And then I feel grateful for what I just think of as good karma, that I've been given the privilege to live in a way that respects others and helps others and has maybe hopefully saved animals. And, I didn't deserve that. It was given to me. And it was given to me really by this woman down here and her wonderful husband, that I don't even want to say that he's late, because he's so very much alive and present and making a difference in this world to this day. And then that's really the third thing. It's the good people. All of you here, even those of you that I don't know really well, and we don't, hang out and talk about our, problems or whatever, but I see you and you see me. And I think for a lot of people, the year kind of goes around their birthday or January 1st or something. For me, it's Summerfest. It's like, how's your year going? What have you accomplished? What have you done? What can you do better next year? And it's July to July to July for 50 years, and hopefully for some to come. So humbly, gratefully, thank you all so very much. Thanks to Mary Beth and Sharon and Brian and all of it. Thank you.